Hello and welcome to Experience Recovery Conversations. These conversations in Lockdown 3 are all about people who are delivering brilliant services to their communities. And today, I'm very lucky to be joined by Kirsty. So Kirsty, just give us a quick intro. Tell us who you are, what you do, and who you do it for, please.
Okay, so I'm Kirsty Groves and I am the GMactive Program Manager for the Prehab4cancer program across Greater Manchester, and like I say, GMactive is who I represent.
Okay, so just give us a quick understanding of what GMactive is, please.
Okay, so GMactive is a collection of 12 of the leisure and cultural organisations across Greater Manchester that come together under one movement and one aim, and it's to get more people more active and more engaged in their community. So it's all the leisure providers and all the cultural providers who come together and they work as one, and they're one voice, and they work together to achieve the best for Greater Manchester.
Okay, fantastic. And the core work that you're in is Prehab4cancer. So what did that mean in times before COVID? What sort of things do you do in your role?
Okay, so the Prehab4cancer program is aimed at newly diagnosed cancer patients who are going for curative surgery or curative treatments. So pre-COVID, my role was very much out in the community, in the leisure centres across Greater Manchester. And we would invite patients in for baseline assessments and follow-up assessments, where we would perform a lot of tests to get a really good understanding of that patient and what they need to improve their clinical outcomes. And then following that assessment, we would then prescribe exercise based on them. So I would be in the gyms with patients, we'd have group sessions in the gym, I'd be designing exercise programs, we'd be doing little sessions together, I'd be seeing my team, and we'd be working together across the borough. And then I also have some managerial responsibilities within the day as well. So all the admin of managing a team and developing the programme. We are embedded in a health pathway, so there's a lot of reporting to clinical teams. So I'd be reporting back to steering groups and to the GM Cancer Board who fund the project. So yeah, so it was usually a busy day.
It sounds it. But tell me, what do the physical activity interventions do? What difference does that make to a patient with a recent diagnosis for cancer?
Okay, so when somebody is diagnosed with cancer and they're preparing for treatment or surgery, we use the analogy of you wouldn't go to do a marathon unless you've done some training. So the marathon in that patient's journey is the treatment or the surgery. So we train for that. So we optimize their body, and we do it as a three-pronged attack. We do their physiological status, so basically their heart and lung function, their strength and functionality. Then we look at their well-being. So well-being is a massive part of our program, and we also support nutrition as well. So our whole aim is for however long we've got that patient pre-surgery, bearing in mind that cancer pathways are very quick. Usually there's a 62-day target of treatment or surgery from diagnosis, so it's a really short time. But our aim is to optimize the patient in those three areas, in their well-being, nutrition and physiological status.
Okay. And what difference do you make? I'm not sure how long you've been doing this, but you know, how do you know you've had an impact, that you've changed the patient's outcomes?
So that's based on our assessments. So we have very strict assessments which we do, and a clinically physiological improvement is shown in a walk test. So we walk test our patients before and after the prehab. And a clinical significance or clinical improvement is anything above 25 meters, I think it is, on those tests. And pre-COVID, we were 11 months old just as the first lockdown happened last March. And our first round of patients were showing that we were improving their walk test data in excess of the clinically significant cutoff. Right. And then we measure their well-being with standardised well-being questionnaires. So we use a lot of the World Health Organization questionnaires. We use something called the Equal30, which is a quality of life questionnaire. And again, we see those numbers going up, so they are improving in there. And then we have a nutritional assessment tool as well, which shows us their nutritional status. We also did a strength test, and we were proving gains in people's strength as well.
That's fantastic. So in 11 months, you were already starting to be able to demonstrate the value of the campaign and the programs that you've put together.
Yeah, we'd had just under 1,000 referrals in the first 11 months, so we had a decent data set coming through, and we're currently doing a full evaluation of them first 11 months to get to the nitty-gritty. But we were seeing really good clinical significant improvements, and the clinical teams were like very engaged and very happy.
Excellent. Yeah, I love measurement and monitoring, and those people that know me know that's our business and what we do. But you know, we use all kinds of platforms and things. Where do you keep all this stuff? How do you do you use a platform to help you with all this information?
We do. We use referrals, so we use their full service, and the clinical teams across the whole of Greater Manchester, so the 12 hospitals, can refer directly with their self-referral portal, so we make use of that as well. So the clinical teams refer directly onto the system, so the data is on that system straight away, and we just add everything to it. So every time we engage in a patient or do an assessment, we add to that data, and then we can put it off. And we have data boards over at GMCancer who are getting into the nitty gritty and really looking at like length of stay, cost savings, stepping down from ICU times, and all of that stuff.
Right. So that leads to really good social return on investment as well, I guess, that social value calculator piece.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really interesting, actually, because if you get that piece right at the beginning, how you're going to measure and monitor, you're much more likely to actually get some really good results at the end of it, because you're not having to backthink it effectively. So that's really impressive, Kirsty. So you were doing really well, great 11-month start, and then I guess you just, because these people will have been shielding as well, wouldn't they now?
Oh yeah, we took a very early decision compared to the rest of the health and leisure industry. We went to a stop pretty much face-to-face in the first week of March, so it was about 2 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
That came from our clinical teams. Like we take their knowledge and their expertise. So they said, look, we think we should stop face-to-face things. What do you think? And I said, if you give me a couple of days, then I'll redesign the service, or pivot, as Andy King's favourite. That is literally what we did. So for 3 days, me and a smaller number of my team, so there was about 3 or 4 of us, were locked in a room, and we completely redesigned the service into a remote service, because it was so important to us that we had like a lot of patients at that point who were active in the gyms, and we couldn't just say, oh, sorry, gyms are going to shut, so we're not doing anything. And like you said, they were asked to shield, so they were housebound, they weren't allowed for walks, a lot of them were just locked in the house. So it was so important that we got that right, and it took a bit of time, but I think we did.
I bet it did. So give us a description of what you've been offering. So had I been one of your patients, what would have been happening in the different lockdowns for me?
So what we did is we literally just replaced anything that was face-to-face with contact. So we stayed open to referrals, where a lot of services, and unfortunately a lot of cancer services in the community didn't. We decided to pick the person who would be a complete technophobe and make sure that they could access everything, and then we built on that. So first and foremost, we phoned everybody on our books and asked them their tech status. So did they have access? Did they have an email address, and all of that know-how? We built a picture of our existing cohort as what we needed to offer. And then from that, we built a paper home exercise library of around about, I think there was about 100 exercises on there, and that people can do in their homes. And it was editable by my team. So once my team did a telephone assessment, they could then edit this document to get a perfect exercise prescription, because we still needed to be very tailored and very specific to achieve those clinical outcomes. We couldn't just give exercise to keep people active. We still had to achieve those outcomes. People were still going for surgery and treatment, so it was still as important. So we designed this exercise prescription that the team do. And then we designed telephone call exercise sessions, which were interesting. But they work for those people who don't have smartphones and don't use the internet. A telephone call exercise session where we literally train them over the phone, and that was the base. And then from there we built onto that. So now we do video calls. We have 15 exercise classes each week.
Wow.
We have early morning ones at like 7 a.m. We have evening ones on weekends. We have one-to-one video calls. We have email. We still have the home exercise pack, which everybody still gets. Every single one of our patients still get that home exercise pack. And yes, and it's going really well. People are loving it. They're really engaging.
That's fantastic.
And we're still getting those outcomes as well. We're still getting those.
That's absolutely brilliant, Kirsty, to hear, you know, like you, the word pivot, it just sends shivers down my spine, but it's fascinating to hear the difference. But I think the really important bit for me is tailoring. And I think that's something actually the entire health and fitness sector needs to look at more. It's much more about tailoring, about what my needs are, what my requirements are, and how that's best suited. So tell me, how are you going to use this stuff going forward? Because you've put a lot of time and effort into this. So what does the future look like using some of the stuff you've learned?
So because we have such a good engagement rate, our engagement rate in online is over 82% for the 750-ish patients we've had access us. So the engagement is high, so people do like it, and it does fit some of our patients. So what we've learned is we're going to aim for this blended approach, because when some of our patients are on active treatment, COVID or no COVID, they effectively shield anyway because they are suppressed. So for those patients, this is a perfect setup for them. And COVID has given us that little bit of time where we could step back in the early days when we were redesigning to really get it right and offer a real high quality home exercise program, which I don't think we could have found the time to do when we were fully up and running. So it has given us that time. So we are definitely going to take this blended service going forward. I think also what we've learned is that we can redesign at a very fast pace, and we can still achieve clinical outcomes in a world where we can't physical contact. So I think we have learned that we can change this program quickly and still achieve. So I think that the swiftness of that is a big learning curve for us.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. A little bit of the stuff that I've had in the past from leaders has been, in the white hot heat of COVID, decisions can be made and can be made quickly. And it's really interesting to hear you say that and refer it to something that's actually quite practical. You created a space in order to do something that really suits patients going forward. It's just brilliant to hear. That's fantastic. So if people are interested in the types of things that you do, I'm going to put some tags on the social media that we put out that will link to places like GMactive and to the Prehab. I know you've got some social media around the Prehab4cancer, but where can people go to find more information, Kirsty?
Prehab4cancer has its own website, so it's prehab4cancer.co.uk or maybe .com. I need to double check that. I think it's .co.uk.
Yeah.
That's where all the information is. It's its own website. It will tell you exactly about the program, how to contact us, how to talk to us. It's got our email address on there. It's got a few of our YouTube videos on there, and it's everything. And it's got lots of patient stuff on there, which is brilliant. The patients are the best voice for the program. So.
Absolutely, and it's the principle of what we've just done. We're telling a story, and people like stories. So, Kirsty, thank you so much for your time and for what you do. Really, really impressed with what you've been up to. Andy King's been talking to me a lot about it. Very, very impressed. Thank you for your time, Kirsty. You take care. See you soon.